Aladar was unimpressed, and he gave him the shoulder. There were no more harsh words that were going to faze him any longer. Nor did the man have any more say to the disfigurement of conventional leadership. With the flick of his tail, Aladar gave him a savage diss to his entitlement and his authority, and proceeded to wander off with the herd on his back. "All right, let's go," he said. Instantaneously, Kron felt Aladar's utter defiance, and his cold dead eyes kindled with fury and bloodlust. This act of provocation was but Aladar's third and final strike, and this time, there would be no mercy for him. Outraged and invigorated, Kron broke into a monstrous charge and sprinted right up to Aladar in his direction with the power and the velocity of a heavyweight convoy. Collided. He repeated the same assault on his head and his spinal bulk. He bit down on Aladar's neck with his long horizontal teeth, restraining him with his front limbs until he gained enough strength to wrestle him down to the ground. On his back, Aladar was grappling with his unbalanced rival, attempting to crush him under his own power, but he managed to prepare his forelimbs into a position in order to stun Kron in his spot, pressing him away with his legs that fiercely drove Kron off and onto his side. Immediately both fighters got back on their feet and encircled each other in a steady gladiation pace, waiting for the next brute attack. Nira, who was still upon the rocks, watched the circulation of the infight. Indignant with her brother, and majorly concerned for Aladar, she hustled down the rocky stairs to put an end to the grit and brutality that clashed right in front of the herd. Aggressively, Kron was the first to make his move and lunged straight for the cerulean opponent in an effort to bruise him. But his forward attack was terribly predictable. The resolved combatant read his lunge like a scroll, and he bypassed it swiftly, giving him the opening and the opportunity to counter Kron's strike with a strike of his own, knocking him down, and scrapping his impact to the ground. Unfortunately for Aladar, his efforts were ineffective against Kron. He quickly recovers from the crash, and in such a deceitful way possible, anything to throw his opponent off balance. He takes his right paw and sweeps the handful of gravel into his face. With his head centered around the dust cloud of gravel, he tried to shrug off the dust on his face, except when he blinked rapidly, exposing his eyes to the pivots of gravel. In response to the sudden twinge in his pupils, Aladar bursts out an agonizing roar. Distracted by the pain in his eyes, he failed to notice that Kron was taking advantage of his inability to see. With the opportunity now siding with Kron, and with the fast swipe of his right arm, he punctures Aladar's chest with his thumb spike, creating a deep gash that leaked a little bit of blood, and Aladar lurched back from the strike. He felt the extreme pain that makes him lower his head as he staggered from Kron. Then Aladar raised his head back and clenched his teeth of pain. But by the time his eyesight recovered after a swift and fast attacks, Aladar was finally able to see, but Kron's tail instantly smites him, and Aladar was sent flying into a nearby wall. Knocked onto the wall, the force of his landing left his body broken and bruised. Aladar was pinned down, heavily wounded, too stunned and too physically shattered to focus his energy in order to retaliate against his opponent. He gazes in silent terror at the seething tyrannical monster towering above him on his 2 feet, ready, his thumb spike. Kron was completely prepared to kill Aladar, for he can make his killing blow, fulfilling the last verdict of Aladar's intervention. Kron was surprisingly thwarted by another iguanodon, knocking down his full stance away from the already weakened Aladar, just in time before Aladar was about to be killed. Once the 2 iguanodons crashed onto the ground, Kron looked upon, and it was Nira who stopped him. This hurts her more than it hurts him. But to attack and kill Aladar was too hard for her. It must be stopped. Nira walked over to Aladar, who was badly injured by the fight. He struggled to get back on his feet, but with the aid of Nira, she carefully put her head under Aladar's neck, until he was able to move on his own. Slowly recovering, Aladar limps with each step forward until he could move at a full healthy pace. and Nira stayed right next to him to prevent him from falling over.